Well, hello there. If you clicked on this video, you clicked on it because you want to learn how to cast one of these fly rods just a little bit further than you are today. And I'm going to check the camera to make sure I'm recording. I've done that, by the way. Did a whole tutorial, never hit record. All right, so I'm going to give you some pointers today to add a little distance to your cast. So you may have heard of something that's called hauling. Hauling helps load the rod and generate line speed. For today's demonstration purposes, I'm using a medium fast action rod. This is actually a really good casting rod for anyone that's relatively new. It's very forgiving. It has a nice even bend throughout the whole entire rod. It's really tough to mess up a cast with this type of rod blank used in its design. And this happens to be my own fly rod. So check them out, fishonrods.com. Back to the tutorial. All right, so for this tutorial, I'm going to assume that you've been casting a fly rod for a little while. I'm going to face this way. Because, of course, before you even start the cast, you want to make sure that you have a minimum of a full length of line, rod length of line, from the tip of your fly rod, where it's really tough to generate any line speed at all if you don't have at least that much line out. Now, hauling, there's two different types of hauling. There's a single haul. And what a single haul is, I'm going to get some line out here. Let's say you've casted it out like I just did here. Now you're going to notice I'm going to pull down on the line while I'm raising my rod up. That's a single haul. And that helps just kind of pick up the line quickly and add that force to the rod, which will help with the casting process. So line's tight, right? Pull down, lift up, and shoot it back out there. That's called a single haul. Pull down, lift up, and shoot it back out there. I'm going to get you a little closer in here. A little bit better. All right. You show that to you again. Got some distance here. So I'm going to cast it out there. All right. So now you want to make sure you have no slack in your line, right? As straight as possible. Your rod tip is down towards the surface of the water. And now, just before I pick up the rod to cast, I'm going to pull down with my left hand, like this. That is a single haul. And that just helps quickly pull the line out of the water, loads the rod real quick for a nice, easy cast. All right. Now I'm going to show you what double hauling is. Now double hauling is an up-down motion when you're casting. When your fly line is going all the way back on the back cast, and it's okay to watch it on the way back, just as it's fully extending out, you want to pull down on the line to help load the rod, which shoots the line out. So for the demonstration purposes, I'm going to pull out all my floating line. So there's about 90 feet of line on here. You can see I'm down to my backing. I'm going to show you how easy this is to do. Cast this entire length of line out by using the haul. All right, so I'm going to get the start out, right? I'm going to get about a length and a half, rod length and a half full of floating line out in front of me. And now you're going to notice an up-down motion with my non-casting hand. See that? Loading the rod, ready to deliver. And just like that, that was about an 80-foot cast. And by the way, if you think that this video is being helpful, hit the thumbs up. I appreciate it. And something else you can do to help support me is hit a super thanks. Anything that you hit on that super thanks helps support me and the channel. And thank you in advance. So I'm gonna even cast against the wind here. Watch my non-casting hand. Just like that, I've cast all of my fly line against the wind because I'm using the double haul. So if I slow that down, you can see the rod is really starting to bend. Sorry about the wind. The rod is really starting to bend, and that energy is being transferred into the line, which helps throw it out even against the wind. So this is probably, about a 10-mile-an-hour wind that I was able to cast this into using the double haul. Now there are two things, right, to consider. Two things that are super important, but we'll get back to that. End of the video. Stay tuned. Now, the next thing, you want to make sure that you have a straight line path to the tip of your rod. Your fly line will follow the path of the tip of your fly rod. And there are casting techniques like the reach cast. You can cast parallel and at the very end, point your fly rod out to the middle of the lake and your fly line will follow. So where some fly fishers get hung up on is that they get kind of a weird arc when they're casting back and forth. So the fly line is following that arc, and a lot of times they'll either snag the line on the way back or on the way forward. So pay attention, right? Try to create a straight line path to the tip of your fly rod. Watch it go back and forth and see if you're turning your wrist in back behind you, because you probably are if you're snagging your line. So straight line path along with the double haul can really make a big difference. Now, it does take some time to learn how to double haul. Way easier to learn the single haul. And the single haul really does do a tremendous amount for adding distance to your cast. Just watch this, right? I've got about maybe 20 feet out. I'm going to single haul down once and throw it out there, and it's going to go probably 60 feet. Just like that. Nice long cast. Watch that again. So I'm fishing, right? I'm ready to make a cast. I'm going to pull down on my left hand to create that line speed. And then I'm going to throw it out. Just like that. I cast probably about 60 feet using that single haul. So start with that and then graduate into the double haul. Some new fly casters ask me about false casting. There are two reasons why you want to false cast. One is you need to dry your dry fly, right? So you're going to go back and forth and dry the dry fly out. The next is generating line speed. In any cast, you really shouldn't have to false cast any more than 1 or 2 times. If you're false casting more than that, you're really just doing it to do it, right? Try it next time, right? The next time you're aiming towards something, do just two false casts and then deliver your fly, right? You've generated enough line speed after the second one, you should be able to shoot that fly out there relatively easy. All right, so what are the 2 most important things? So, fly line makes a difference, right? If you got one of those setups that are just kind of everything's all inclusive, right? Rod, reel, and line, that might last you a season. But if you're having a hard time casting, it's because your fly line really isn't that great. Invest in the fly line. You seriously could have a $50 reel, but then put a $100 fly line on it, and you're gonna find your casting improves immensely. So invest in the fly line. Reel makes a solid line. Scientific Anglers makes a really good line. And once you make that investment of $50 to $100, depending on the line that you're buying, you're gonna notice a huge difference. Next is the rod. The rod makes a ton of difference. If you go out and buy a fast action rod and you haven't been casting very long, that's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough for you to learn that way. Part of the reason why I designed this particular series of fly rods is that it's a medium fast action. It has a ton of forgiveness. So you can really screw up that cast and the line's gonna still go out there if you've got a quality rod with a medium fast action, right? Just has a different, smoother feel, and you don't have to be as technical to get it out there. So the rod does make a difference. You can see, I've been casting a long time, but just look how effortless this is to get a bunch of line out. I'm just gonna pick it up and shoot it out. And just like that, I've casted probably 60 feet. So rod makes a huge difference, line makes a huge difference. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about this fly rod, I partnered up with a custom fly rod maker, and we've got about 80 years of experience going into this rod. I almost been fly fishing for about 40 years. Neil has been building rods for nearly 40 years. He knows his stuff, and I know my stuff when it comes to what I look for in a fly rod that makes it great. And today, to get a really, really good fly rod that would do everything that I just described, you're gonna be dropping over $1,000 for something like that. And that is a lot of money for anyone to spend. So I partnered up with him and I challenged him. I said, hey, can you build a fly rod for under $500 that has all the same components as these super high-end rods? And arguably, this rod is better than a lot of those super high-end brands. This cork is hand-turned. This entire thing is handmade. We hand make these to order. We didn't skimp on one thing on this rod. This has a carbon fiber. It's called a parabolic power taper. It's a nice medium soft action, so it's very, very forgiving. We use the best in rod seats, the highest grade cork, a super solid reel seat that's been in the market for a lot of years and time tested, real wood accents. This thing really is a great rod, and for half the price. You can get into basically $1,000 to $1,100 rod for between $435 and $485 depending on the weight. So I'll leave a link right here. You can check this video out. It tells you a little bit more about the rods, and you can check out fishonrods.com if you want to learn a little bit more about these rods, but they really are a spectacular rod. All right, thanks so much for tuning in today. I appreciate it, and fish on.